Finally, so yes!
Congrats! You've successfully written the first draft of your essay.
Hello!
Weeks of research and trying to put an idea in your own words have finally paid off. But this is not the end.
So?
Nope.
What?
You still need to check it over.
But didn't I do that while I was writing?
This is the personal editing after the fact, when you can be more objective.
Huh? What?
So, you'll be following the 5 C's.
Okay.
Maybe you better sit down. The 5 C's of successful writing are very important. The first C is cut. Begin by cutting repetition and wordiness. Let's examine the following sentence. Steven Spielberg, who has directed the movie that has been described as the best war movie ever made, is someone who knows many politicians. This is a very repetitious sentence. So we should cut who has directed and replace it with director of. We should also cut is someone who, as we already know who we are discussing. There are more direct ways to say what you need to. Also, that can often be taken out of written sentences. Though we say it a lot, it doesn't always have a purpose in our writing. Next, you should cut formulaic phrases. There are a lot of phrases that can be made far more concise. Simplify them. For example, at the present time, at this point in time, in this day and age, and in today's society can all be simplified to now. After that, eliminate references to your intentions, like, in this essay, I intend to prove, or in the next few paragraphs, I hope to show, because in a short essay, there is no need to announce a plan. However, we should note that sometimes, in the social or physical sciences, information is provided in a set order, so these signals can be more appropriate. Cutting is all about knowing what information you actually need. Finally, you should cut redundant words and phrases. Trim words that simply repeat an idea expressed by another word in the same phrase, like basic essentials, true facts, circle around, etc. The definition of the unitalicized black words includes the italicized purple, so you don't actually need them. Also edit redundant pairs, like hopes and desires, each and every, first and foremost, questions and problems, etc., as these words mean the same thing. With these rules on cutting in mind, if given the sentence, his surgeon is a doctor with a great deal of clinical experience and has completed his surgery a total of 97 times. We would delete is a doctor with and replace it with has, and cross out a total of, as 97 times already reflects the total. When you cut, you bring your main ideas to the forefront of the sentence. The second C is to check for actions. Vigorous sentences clearly show who is doing what as a subject and verb, with the best verbs possible. Do not overuse the verb be or other verbs in the passive voice. In this sentence, the subject approval and verb was tell readers very little. If we ask who is doing what, we can come up with better verbs that make the sentence more direct and active. From the sentence, we take the subjects governor, voters, and deputy, and find that the verbs approved, suspected, and concealed make the new sentence more effective, with governor and approved as the main subject and verb of the sentence. The next step, as we check for action, is to examine sentences beginning with there or it. There is, there were, it is, it was. There and it become the subject in sentences that begin with these phrases, and can often become wordy because you have to explain far more. For example, there was a discussion of the education system by the politicians. If we ask ourselves, who is doing what? namely the politicians had a discussion, we can rewrite the sentence as the politicians discussed the education system, and thus make the sentence more direct. Try to avoid unnecessary passive voice. In scientific writing, we will often see sentences like, "The mice were fed," because readers are supposed to focus on the data and procedure. However, outside of the scientific setting, these types of sentences can be frustrating because you don't know who completed the action. So if you have these types of sentences, answer this question and rewrite your sentence. We would change the previous example to, "The researchers fed the mice." The third C, after cut and check for action, is to connect. We want our sentences and paragraphs to flow smoothly into each other with clear connections. With consistent subject and topic chains, readers can connect the ideas beginning a sentence with what has come before, avoiding jarring shifts of subject. For example, in these two sentences, the subject at the beginning of the sentence changes even though they should be describing the same thing. Memoirs. Because memoirs is the actual subject connecting these two sentences, we would change the second sentence to bring the memoirs to the front. When we put the subject at the front of the sentence, the connection becomes much clearer to readers. The next part is to establish logical connections with coordination, subordination, and transitions by combining sentences and related ideas. We all know about the coordinating conjunctions. Fanboys. These short words are used to connect clauses and give them equal emphasis in a sentence. For example, the waves were enormous, but the surfers approached them happily. Both parts of the sentence are independent, or could be separated into their own sentences, working together thanks to the conjunction but. You can also connect clauses with subordinating conjunctions, such as when, if, or because, to connect clauses where one idea is more important. One clause becomes dependent on the other. For example, with the two sentences, "We cannot now end our differences," and "at least we can help make the world a safer place for diversity," the connection is not clear. However, if we connect them and make one clause dependent on the other with subordination, we can make our ideas clearer. By adding the subordinating conjunction if and a comma, we create a dependent clause and an independent clause to connect ideas. We can also connect with transitional phrases like however, therefore, nevertheless, in addition, as a result, and on the other hand, which can also be used to signal the connection between independent clauses and sentences. However, be careful because too much of one of these methods of connection can become annoying, so try to strike a balance between coordination, subordination, and transitions. Another connection we sometimes see, but should try to avoid, is beginning a sentence with and or but. Though this is sometimes used in journalism and other writing forms, most of academia frowns upon putting these words at the beginning of a sentence. You can, but it is often considered poor writing. Paragraph connections are also very important. A new paragraph signals a shift in topic, but readers still look for transitional words and phrases that tell them how a new paragraph relates to the paragraph that preceded it. As you go over your essay, ensure these connections are there. The fourth C is to commit. Readers expect your writing to be consistent and take a clear stand on your subject. The first thing you must commit to is appropriate and consistent tone. If you are writing a paper about refugees escaping from war and the ways their lives change, a serious, respectful tone should be used throughout. If you are writing about different types of humor, sarcasm and humor are more appropriate. Your subject will often dictate the tone. Most academic writing should be objective and serious. Be careful of avoiding a chatty or conversational tone. A confident stance is also needed in your writing, particularly in argumentative writing. Avoid ambivalence and indecisiveness in your wording, evident in phrases like maybe, perhaps, it could be, it might be, and it would appear, as hedging does not make readers more confident in what you say. If you want to convince readers to your point of view, your writing must convey that you believe what you write. Some examples of committed words are as a result, consequently, of course, believe, need, demand, should, or must. However, before you use these words, you should have thoroughly researched your topic and believe your evidence is convincing. The final C is to choose the best words. In your writing, you do not want to be vague, informal, or exclusionary. When you write, use exact words and connotations. The words may have similar dictionary definitions, also known as denotations. They can have additional positive or negative implications, called connotations. For example, readers will be confused if you call someone lazy when you meant to call them relaxed. Or, for example, if we look at the words devastate and demolish, both mean in some way to destroy, but the connotation of devastate as emotional destruction as well as physical would make the sentence, construction workers devastated the building, inappropriate because they are simply doing their job, not seeking to cause emotional trauma. Thus, demolished would be better in the sentence. Other words like area, aspect, factor, manner, nature, scene, situation, or thing are far too vague and basically just fill space. If you don't move away from these abstract terms, you will give readers too much imaginative leeway. Lists can be a great way to make things clear. For example, perceptions of women's roles differ as we enter new areas. Areas makes the sentence very vague. Instead, we can list how perceptions differ. As we learn more from what we see, hear, read, and experience in this sentence, making the sentence more descriptive. Another thing to carefully choose in your words is language of speech, region, and workplace. What does this mean? In formal college essays, don't use the language of conversation or slang, or regional or ethnic dialects unless you are quoting someone directly. However, appropriate technical words of the workplace can be used if you provide definitions that will make sense to your audience. Figurative language is also related to word choice and can enhance your writing when used appropriately to add imaginative descriptions. A simile is an explicit comparison with both sides stated. A metaphor is an implied comparison without like or as. An example of a simile is, she glided across the dance floor like a swan, because the subject, she, is compared with the word like. The metaphor example is an implied comparison because more is alluded to with the phrase, time is a thief. However, be careful not to illogically combine your metaphors. If someone is about to play tennis, you shouldn't be using a swimming metaphor. The final choice you must make is to avoid cliches and pretentious language. Cliches are tired, overly familiar expressions. For example, broaden your horizons or crystal clear. Also, there's a difference between formal and stuffy language. Formal writing does not require you to use long, difficult, obscure words or sentences. Pretentious language makes reading difficult and tends to be a sign of bad writing. Only use the appropriate language for a situation, because if you use too many complex words, the reader will be confused. So, carefully read over your paper with the 5 C's in mind. Cut, check for action, connect, commit, and choose the best words. Once you edit with these rules, you'll have a great paper.
Wow, that's a lot to look for.
It is, but if you manage your time wisely, you don't have to do it all at once. You should have a few days before your paper is due to look it over and edit from these 5 perspectives.
Guess I better get started.